The recording is on. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christine Till, the LinkedIn Marketing Mentress, speaking to you today in behalf of Roy Prevost and Speakers Cruise for Free. This is absolutely fantabulous. I have been trying for almost a year to figure out how to be a cruise ship speaker. And then when I was talking to Roy a few months ago and discovered he was already doing it, I thought, well, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to find out more. So Roy Prevost is an international speaker, best-selling author, and futurist. Sarah Prevost is a speaker and research expert. Roy and Sarah Prevost are both cruise speakers, and they have traveled the world on free cruises as cruise speakers over the last 8 years. They have cruised New York to St. John, New Brunswick twice, Panama Canal 3 times, Caribbean 3 times, Mediterranean to Alexandria and visiting the pyramids once, Hawaii 4 times, Mexico 3 times, and Tahiti once. That's a total of 17 cruises. Whoa! I don't know about you. If you've been looking into cruises, they are not an inexpensive item. What Roy and Sarah do is they share their experience and their expertise about all these exotic adventures that they've been on through workshops and coaching. I would like you to please welcome Mr. Roy Prevost.
Ta-da! Thank you, Christy. Thank you for a wonderful introduction. And she's so kind. So yes, I am a cruise speaker, and Sarah and I have been cruising now for I think it's 8 years. And so how this all began for me was back about 8-9 years ago. I was working away. My career is I teach small business how to survive in the big box retail world, among other things. And I got an email from a friend in the United States, and he said, Roy, you have to have a look at this. It's how you can cruise for free if you enjoy cruises. And I had been on a couple of repositioning cruises previously, and my wife and I both said, this is such a great opportunity to relax and have fun and do stuff. And then when this opportunity came aboard, I said, you know what, I'm going to look into this a lot further. So I signed up for this guy's coaching program. And he kind of walked me through the process, and we started out, speaking on cruise ships. Or both of us did, actually. Sarah mostly did the gig when we went to the Mediterranean and went to Egypt, and she talked, I think she did 3 different workshops there on how to Greek style and architecture and that kind of thing, because that's her background. And then we put these lectures together, which I'm going to share with you in a few minutes, of how to do it and what to do and the way to become a cruise speaker. So what you learn on this webinar, well, I'll talk about my baptism of fire, the very first cruise lecturing event that I did. Then I'll talk about your new career as an edutainer, the enrichment lectures and the destination lectures and the difference between the two. Then we'll talk a little bit about topics that resonate, how to do the research on your topics, the 4 steps of getting selected, your life on board the cruise ship, how to wow your audience. And then at the end, I have an offer for a 1-day complete workshop, which I'm doing in Vancouver, and I'll share that with you also. So we'll get immediately into this content. So who am I? Well, first, I'm a Rotarian. And a very active one, and I believe in the cause, and we do great works around the world and in our local community. And if you're not a Rotarian, I suggest you look at it very seriously. I'm an international speaker. I'm a best-selling author. I'm a futurist on the future consumer. I'm a storyteller, amateur historian. Now, these 2 things that I put here, this goes into your bio also, because they love people who are storytellers and amateur historians, and we teach you how to do that in the actual workshop, how to become a storyteller and how to position yourself as an amateur historian. And then as a kind of a bit of a side note, I'm a former singer, dancer in musical theater, and the president of the theater company, this was when I was living in Montreal, the president of the theater company came to me one day and he said, we're going bankrupt here. But we would like you to take over as president because your singing and dancing talents could use a lot of help, and we don't think there's a future there for you. Therefore, producing would probably be the best idea. And I did become the producer and president and became very successful at it, which means that you go where your talents are and you work to your talent and what you're capable of. So that's just a kind of a personal lesson I learned at that time. And that's kind of a very small thumbnail of what I do and who I am. Where have we cruised? Some of these numbers probably, we've even forgotten how many cruises we've been on. But certainly Panama, Caribbean, and in fact, Panama Canal, we're looking at another one for September, although we're not sure. We've got family obligations and whatever. The Caribbean 3 times, Hawaii, Tahiti once, Mediterranean once, Mexico 3 times, New York to St. John, New Brunswick. We have been cruising a minimum of 2, possibly 3 times a year. So the elements of the cruise are wonderful. Now I have a bunch of pictures here that I just want to share with you because I know that people resonate a lot more with pictures, and some of them I'll give you better descriptions of what it looks like. But this is, as my wife says, it's a great gig if you can get it. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. So, start off every workshop and event and webinar I always do with the attitude of gratitude. And I always start off by saying that what lottery have we won? We're 36 million people here in Canada. There are 7.2 billion people on the planet. Most of them live on $2 a day. And so when I get on the cruise ships and start my lectures, I always start with this slide because it creates an attitude of gratitude with the people on board. And it totally amazes me how many people come up to me during the cruise and say, I really love the fact that you remind us how we should have a great sense of gratitude. So my life generally is built around having a whole sense of gratitude for who I am and what is going on in my life. And that translates into everything. Whether it's my business or whether it's my charitable work or whatever I do, I always try to live in that context of attitude of gratitude. And so that I would, as a cruise speaker, this would be my second or third slide, similar to what I'm doing here, where you remind people if they're on that cruise ship, they're in the 0.5% of people in the lap of luxury. So that just kind of spells out who you are on board, and people are attracted to that. So this is who typically the people who are on board cruise ships. They usually come from environments where they're overwhelmed. Doesn't matter what age they are, they're overwhelmed. They've got issues in their lives, and they want some fun, and they want some good information, which brings me to the point of my workshop, which is teaching you the topics that are of interest to the cruise line for their passengers. Now, as an example, I speak on small business. I would never, ever bring up small business on board a cruise ship because people are not there to learn about business. They want other topics. So I'll share with you some of the topics that we talk about and that we help you with during the workshop that we put on. And so it's a very good way to connect to people, but it's also a reminder that people are there for fun on board the cruise ships. And here's another one. They feel that they're overwhelmed all the time, the passengers. So you have to be the person who comes on, gives them some good content, but doesn't overwhelm them with stuff and numbers and statistics and whatever. They just want to have fun with you. They want to be entertained. They want some information. They can talk over dinner, over drinks in the evening, and that's just about it. So you're doing 35-minute talks on sea days, 35 minutes, usually around 11 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon, and they tell you where and what to speak about. So let me just share with you the first gig I ever got. And the reason I share this is for twofold reason. One is to remind you never to do this. And the second reason is to show you how serendipitous life can be sometimes. So I sign up for this gentleman's course, and he coaches me, and he builds my bio with me, and he does all kinds of, and shows me how to put the presentations together. Excuse me, and I do that, and then I'm sitting at my desk. It's October. I remember it's a Wednesday. I'm working away, and the phone rings, and it's Princess Cruise Lines, and they say we have an emergency in New York, where we need a speaker to go from New York to St. John, New Brunswick, back to back, means 2 different cruises of a week. And we want you to deliver 2 presentations, one on the mansions of Newport, Rhode Island, and the other one on the Halifax explosion. Now, I knew about the Halifax explosion from, people, somebody may have talked to me about it at one point, but, it never resonated with me tremendously. And I never even knew there were mansions on Newport, Rhode Island. So the gentleman who phones me says, so are you ready? And I said, well, yeah, sure. When is it? He said, Saturday. This is a Wednesday. So, what was I going to say? I couldn't say, well, no, that's too soon, because I really, this is my first gig, and I didn't want to disappoint him. So I automatically said, yes, sure, no problem. He said, we'll send you a ticket to fly out Friday, Friday during the evening. And you arrive there Saturday in New York, and you board the ship. It might have even been Thursday. No, it would have been Friday. And you arrive Saturday, and you board the ship, and then you're on your way, and we'll tell you the days you have to speak, etc. So that's fine. I hang up the phone, and I go. I get into a hyperventilating, because I'm saying, oh my gosh, what did I do? So I phone my wife. God bless her, my wife, who's saved me more from more difficulties than I can remember. I phoned her and I said, well, good news is we've got a cruise. So, I know you can't come the first week, but you can join me the second week. And that's the good news. The bad news is it's Saturday. And so she also went into panic, but she said, not to worry. We have a book here on the mansions of of Newport, Rhode Island, because she worked for an architectural firm, and they happen to have that as a coffee table book. So I said, great, bring it home. In the meantime, I Googled Halifax explosion PowerPoint free. And sure enough, up pops this PowerPoint on the Halifax explosion, done by a school teacher, very simply done, the whole story of it, everything is right there. So the next, the book comes home, I open it up on the first page, and it's done by the Newport, Rhode Island Historical Society. So I phoned them the next morning at 6 a.m. I'm on the phone. I said, do you have a DVD of the mansions? And they said, yes, I'm sure we do. So I phoned my coach, and I said, why don't I just play the DVD, and I can narrate behind it? He said, no. They can do that. They're looking for a speaker, someone who stands up, does a PowerPoint presentation, and talks reasonably knowledgeably about this process. I said, fine, hang up the phone. Phone my webmaster in Courtenay, BC, say to her, Marjorie, I'm sending you a DVD, you'll receive it tomorrow. I want you to pull all the mansions off the DVD and put them into a PowerPoint presentation for me, and send it to me in New York, because I'm going to be speaking on a cruise ship. So all that overnight flight, that red eye that I took from Vancouver to New York, I studied my content, because this is another thing you learn in the workshop. It's great to have research, but you also have to kind of bring it into your world. And so you have to kind of play with it so that it's part of you. So I was just reviewing it and rehearsing it and looking at it, and certainly on the Halifax explosion, on the mansions, I hadn't even arrived at that yet. So I get to New York, mansions are there when I get there. I spend literally half day putting all it together and bring in the content and whatever. It was quite doable, but it was, it wasn't, because again, I Googled each mansion and did whatever had to be done. So we head out on our cruise. The first talk was on the mansions. So I get up there and I'm chatting and blah, blah, blah. And at the end I say, any questions? Everybody applauds. And 2 people come up and they said, what a fantastic presentation. And of course, I'm just over the moon, because that's what you love to hear. And the cruise director said it was a great presentation. The next day, I did the Halifax explosion one. So I get up there and I'm talking and everything's going well. And then two ladies walk into the theater, and they sit in the very front row and they're listening to me, and that's going very well. All is well. And then I said, any comments or questions? And one of the ladies stands up and she says, I have a comment. And so my heart went right into my throat, because I thought, oh boy, I've blown it somehow, or, I said something wrong, or I didn't share the right information, or I don't know. You know how your brain works. My brain works. I have a gremlin always sitting on my shoulder. The lady says, no, she says, it's interesting, that presentation you just did. I just want to share a personal story. I said, by all means. She says, my grandmother was standing in their house on the harbor, overlooking that two ships burning in the harbor in that particular fateful day. The explosion goes off, and she's blown out of the house into the street. My grandfather is working quite a distance away in a foundry, so he's not affected by the actual explosion itself, although he tries to come back to his home, and this chaos everywhere. I mean, everything's blocked, everything's rubble. He finally determines when he gets home that his house does not exist anymore. There's nothing there. So naturally, he's in a state of absolute shock. And then somebody says to him, you might want to go to the school basement. The school itself is not up, but the basement is there. And they've got a makeshift morgue in the basement, and you might find your wife's body there. So he makes his way to the morgue and goes down and is walking up and down the aisles in the basement of these corpses that are covered with sheets. And as he's walking, he looks and he recognizes her shoes, and her foot is shaking. So he calls over a medic, and the medic, he says, this is my wife and she's alive. We have to help her. And the medic revives her, and she says, this woman says, I would not be here had it not been for my grandfather doing this, and that's the way life is. Well, the whole theater just turned into, I'm telling you, they all went over to her. They were talking to her. Some women were crying about, and she was just inundated, and I was just standing back watching this happen. Now, why am I sharing that with you? Because as a speaker, you're in the transformation business, and you can transform people's lives by simply doing speaking gigs. Now, it doesn't mean that you're going to run into that situation ever again. I will never run into it again. But I realized at that moment how I affected people's lives on that day, at that time. So when you're on a cruise, I can share with you personally that I've had women walk up and say, your comments or your that slide that you showed really made a big difference in my life. And so that's part of what you do and who you are as a cruise speaker. Now, to be fair, I would never say to you, if a cruise ship ever called you and said, we want you to do a presentation in 3 days, if you're not prepared, say, I'm sorry, can't do it, because you only have one kick at the can here. And I don't know what possessed me to even accept to do it, but I did, and it happened to work out. So that's my baptism of fire. This is a typical thing that you will get from Holland America. I happened to call them up and said, do you have anything in South America? And they said, here it is. And it was from Lima, Peru to San Diego, California. I could have taken that cruise, and it turned out I didn't, because I'm still in career and I still work for a living. This is a theater that, I think this is on Holland America. This is a theater, and it shows the different people there. This was about 15 minutes before my presentation. They were coming in to sit down and get details and whatever. And you'll notice a person in there. My wife is there. I'm not sure you can see her. She's in pink with a scarf around her head, and right next to her is a guy goofing around. He happens to be a judge from Calgary, he and his wife, and we spent many evenings having dinner with them, and really it was great fun. And so this is the kind of people that you meet on board cruises, and it's a great way to meet people and have conversations and discussions and whatever. So this is a kind of from the stage where you would be talking to people. This is myself doing this is one on Thor Heyerdahl. I did a presentation on him, and I'm talking to now. This is only a partial of the crowd, and that was in a different room. That was on Holland America again, but it was in a different part of the ship, and I'm not sure it was a bar, I believe, it was a different lounge area. And in fact, it's not Holland America. I'm looking at the insignia right now. It's Princess. So you know, depending on where they set you up and where you talk. This is Princess again, and this is on board the deck where the swimming pool is. And from time to time, PBS, they have this happens to be Pavarotti, and they have this gigantic screen, and they'll be playing a concert of Pavarotti or anybody else, or typically any shows that are on PBS or any other network like that. So you become an edutainer, amateur historian, storyteller. You put humor into your talks, self-deprecating, laugh at your foibles. I'm not a comedian, so I kind of laugh at what I do and try and make some humor out of the presentation I put together. And we teach you that in the workshop, how to do that and how to build your story from the subject matter. Enrichment lectures, these are timeless, good for any cruise whatsoever. I'll give you examples of that. History of cruising, we do one. In fact, the history of cruising is the 40-minute presentation that I give in the day workshop that I do. So this is the history of cruising, how it started and how they got into, you know, it went from immigrants coming from Europe over to North America, and then it evolved into what it is today. And so I walk you through the history of how that happens. I'm going to take another sip of water here. That's a typical one. Pirate stories from way back when the pirates were around, right up to Somalia. So I tell the whole story, the history of most of the pirates, or you know, some of the more prominent pirates. And then I talk about the more recent Somalia situation where you know, they're pirating ships going through around the Horn of Africa. Celebrity exposés, they love celebrity. You know, we live in a celebrity-obsessed culture. So if you can talk about old movie stars or old actors, or when I say old, from a different era, people love that stuff. Can't get enough of it. Marilyn Monroe, Cary Grant, all this kind of stuff. This Sarah and I on one of our, this was a formal evening, and you'll notice behind, the reason I want to show this, you'll notice behind, you'll see a statue of, or not a statue, but a formation of champagne glasses. So on board the cruise, you get the champagne glasses, and they pour the champagne from the top down. And this is an evening where you can go up there and get your picture taken and whatever. It's just a very elegant evening. And you'll see people starting to mill about, and you'll see the guy behind playing in a three-piece quartet orchestra in the background there. This is Roy. Thankfully, I'm covered by water, so you can't see me. But that's just to show you that in the evening, like around dusk, we were up swimming in the hot tub on one of the decks up above, just, you know, relaxing, having a good time. This is a sunset, and we have several pictures. My wife said, don't put all those in. But the sun goes really down really fast in Hawaii, or coming into Hawaii. So, you know, you have about maybe a 10-minute period where you see the sun literally drop over the horizon. Absolutely breathtaking and spectacular. This is one of the singers in one of the club areas, and an absolutely wonderful guy, and we got to know him really well. Great music, great time, just sitting around listening to him, you know, going through medleys of songs, and it changes night after night. Really very high energy type, very nicely done. This is Marquesas Islands off Tahiti. And you'll notice our ship in the background, and then we're tendered into this wonderful cove. We went swimming and ate some of the local food and walked around, took pictures, did all kinds of wonderful things. Again, relaxation. Remember, the only time you speak is 35 minutes at sea, and you do these lectures, and then the rest of the time is yours for you and your partner. Destination lectures are titles specific to a location. They could be cultural. They could be the 50 fun things about Seattle, about San Diego, about San Francisco, about Honolulu. Doesn't matter. These are destination lectures that you give one lecture before you arrive at a particular port, and you talk about that port, not giving tourist information as much as the funny, quirky things that go on. I think we have one that says 50 outlandish laws that Honolulu put into place. I think that's the name title, but somewhere around like that make people laugh, the silliness that goes on. Little known facts, obscure eccentric information, that's destination lectures. And it creates anticipation for the area that you're going into. Port Angeles is one that we did on one of the cruises. And because coming back from Tahiti, Port Angeles is one of the stops, so we stopped there, and then we went on to Seattle, and then on back to Vancouver. And so we did a presentation on Port Angeles. Again, you can get that on Wikipedia, or you can Google almost anything. Here are some topics that resonate. I'm not going to go through them, but people love anything around crime investigation, maritime history, astronomy. We were on one boat cruise, and they had a retired NASA scientist who did 5 lectures on outer space that were just wonderful. I mean, I attended every single one of them. We had dinner with him one night, and one of the conversations that we have is, well, one of the questions I asked from the floor after he'd done his presentation, and he says, "Any questions?" And I said, so one of the questions I said was, "Is there any intelligent life out there?" And he said, "Good question," but he said, "Probably a better question is there any intelligent life here?" Which got a real roar of laughter from everybody. And the answer to that is they think there is, but it may not be in the life form that you and I are familiar with. So very interesting, again, topic. And also, again, you get to meet these people. And if you're a single guest lecturer, well, first you'll have your own suite. Second, there are many single people on board. I mean, it is rampant with single people, men and women. You don't face the same restrictions as a crew, so you are passengers, although you may be living in the crew area, and you can be as social as you want to be. And then if I were single today on board these cruises doing cruise talks, here's what I would do. I would go to the maitre d' of the open dining restaurant, and I would say, "Okay, here's $20, young man. Now, if there is a single lady who has high energy, great personality, great sense of humor, and you decide the characteristics you want of that person, and you say, I'm going to be sitting right over there. If they come in, if this person comes in with another group, I want you to sit me at that table." So that's how you get to meet single people. By the way, just as a side note, I met my wife on an Alaskan cruise, and we've been married 15 years now. So, so it's all is possible. Here are some other obligations. You're an ambassador for the cruise line. You may be asked to accompany excursions. I've never done that because I've never put my name in. But what you do is when you arrive on the cruise ship, you go straight to the tour area and you say, "I'm happy to accompany excursions, and I know of other speakers who have done that, and it's worked really well for them." You may be asked to help with fun and games from time to time. You may be asked to join a group for dinner. The 4 steps to being a cruise speaker. Choose a cruise 4 to 6 months out. Create a destination and or enrichment lectures for that itinerary. So you choose a cruise, you see that it has 5 sea days minimum, and you create your presentations in that vein. And you create the titles, but you don't do the research yet. That's very, very important, because they may not like your titles, and you've done all that work. So you create 6 or 7 titles. We teach you all what to do that in the workshop. And you send your bio and your video and whatever else to the cruise line. I introduce you to the cruise line. If you take my workshop, I introduce you to the different cruise lines. And then you're on your own. You can figure that out for yourself after that. You call the cruise speaker coordinator, or I introduce you, and then you follow up by email with them and work out whatever details have to be worked out. And then you follow up with them later. you have to follow up with them because they get very busy and you could fall off the radar very quickly. So those are the 4 steps to being a cruise speaker. I'm going to take another sip of water here. So tipping policy. Princess guest covers tips. Speakers do not pay tips. That's similar to Royal Caribbean. And the Holland America, no tips are paid. It's at your discretion, and I don't know where that they send your airline ticket, how that got to be there, but I'll have to remove that for the next webinar. This is a wonderful letter we received. I always put that in because I find it absolutely hilarious, and you will too, because as a cruise speaker, you have wonderful eccentric people on board. So it starts out, "Dear Mr. Prevost, I'm going to read it because it's just too hilarious for words. I'm compelled to write to you to request that you make a correction to one of your slides. How did Oregon get its name? To correct your error, remove the apostrophe from IT apostrophe S, and please note that IT apostrophe S is the contracted form of it is, and should not be confused with ITS, the possessive pronoun, meaning belonging to it. Perhaps this was a typing error, but you have a responsibility to show the / use the word in its correct form when presenting your material to so many people. Sincerely, President of the Misuse of the Apostrophe Society." I couldn't resist. I had to put that up there because you'll get all kinds of wonderful, eccentric people coming up to you and making comments and about your presentation, and you just thank them graciously and say thank you so much. Now, this person did not come up to me. I thought it was a joke, but I have Googled it, and there is such a thing. They don't have a website or anything, but c'est la vie is what I always say. If you have a particular expertise or a credential, you can connect your expertise to the lecture. Now, again, coming back to that NASA scientist, no problem. We had he could do 10 lectures on space, and they'd all be thrilling. Another gentleman who came on board from Vancouver, he's a naturalist and a prof, and he did 7 or 8 presentations. So, you know, if you have an expertise, you can do that. Have you ever published on your lecture topic? Is your career education connected to your lecture? So it could be part of your presentation. Anytime you can establish yourself as an expert, you'll make your sales pitch to the cruise line a lot easier. Here are some research resources. I never use these, frankly. I may have used Dogpile occasionally, but I just go to Wikipedia and Google it, and it'll come up. I mean, research today is so simple and so easily done. You don't need to go to any specific area unless you insist on doing that. Keys to a great presentation: break up your material into logical pieces. Your presentation should be, it should be an easy form. Key points in the presentation, or in a PowerPoint, I should say, or an equivalent format. I use PowerPoint on mine, and I put text up there. Nobody, people are not going to come up to you and, they just love to get the information, and you are an edutainer. So you make your presentation such that it's easy to follow, etc. And then practice the individual pieces one at a time. So we teach you in the workshop. It is not a complicated thing to do, very easy to do. You can also do an audition cruise, and this is the easiest and quickest path to get approved. Now, what that means is you buy a ticket. We have a couple that we know that is going on an Alaskan cruise this summer, and they're contemplating doing an audition cruise, which means it takes the cruise line out of the picture. You offer to do a talk. You could only do one. You can do one or a couple if you wish. You offer to do one as a lecturer to see if you suit their criteria, and then there's no risk for them other than you just doing one talk, and that's how you get yourself into their good books. If you come to my workshop, you don't have to do an audition cruise. Here's a sample of the itinerary. Princess Cruises, that's for 2015. Just 5 days at sea. You see it right there, going from Vancouver to Honolulu. Here we are aboard a Caribbean cruise on New Year's Eve, 2014. And 2013, sorry. And it was fabulous. I mean, you're in the Caribbean, beautiful warm breezes. You're on the top deck. The music is absolutely fabulous, and it's New Year's Eve. So my wife, that's going to be her goal every year, is that we get on a Caribbean cruise on New Year's Eve out of Fort Lauderdale. And here's some friends from Vancouver who joined us on the cruise, and you know, it was just great time. What can I say? Great gig if you can get it. Okay, my computer's frozen. Oh, sorry. Okay, here we go. Your lecture portfolio. You get a YouTube video of you speaking in front of a live audience. That's what you need. A fill-in-the-blank outline of each lecture for your chosen trip. A brief biography of yourself. So if you attend our workshop, we do all that with you. And I'll talk to the YouTube video in a moment. But we teach how to put your biography together. We fill in the blank outline of each lecture, how to structure your lectures. Here's how you wow them on your first cruise. Remember what I said earlier, remind everyone that they have won the lottery if they're aboard this ship. And men, acknowledge your wives. I always acknowledge my wife from the stage, because I can tell you, and I mean it so sincerely, I would not be anywhere without her. She's done the research, and beyond cruising, she has been so supportive and so accepting of all the crazy and wild-eyed schemes that I've gotten up to over my life. So I'm heavily indebted to her. And of course, ladies, if you're on board, you acknowledge your husband or your partner, who's ever there, and they're usually sitting in the audience in the front row. And that endears you to your audience even more. Secrets to growing your audience: you meet the other speakers on board. So how you do that is that when you climb aboard the cruise ship, the cruise director, there's usually a letter in your stateroom that says, you know, we want to meet you at such and such a bar at such and such an hour on that first day. And then the cruise director meets you and he says, okay, here are the do's and don'ts, and here's what we want you to do. And they'll share some information with you. And at the same time, all the other speakers are there. So I usually introduce myself, and then I say to them, I'll help promote you if you'll help promote me. And that usually works quite well, and that builds your audience. And then when you're in dinner or you're at coffee or you're at some event and you're sitting with people, you just invite them to your lectures. You want to get as many people into your lectures as possible. And then for those that reattend and you get to know who they are, you thank them from the stage, and they love it. Murphy's Law, here we go. Mexican cruise during the Vancouver Olympics. So this was a kind of a serendipitous situation again. My wife and I decided that we would go on a Mexican cruise during the Vancouver Olympics, because we thought that it would just be too chaotic at home. In some aspects, we regret that, because we should have been here for the Olympics, and we had a different kind of idea around it. Fortunately, we booked the cruise, because 2 days before our cruise, we were literally flooded out of our home, where there was black water that came in, and the restoration company came in. They said, we don't want you to even pack anything other than your computer and your change of clothes and whatever, and we're going to take care of everything else, because this is a contaminated area. And this went on for 4.5, 5 months. But in any event, that Mexican cruise was coming up. So 2 days before, we move into a hotel, and then we head out to Los Angeles. And remember, we're homeless. So we get to Los Angeles at the dock, and as we're coming, we're signing up to get on the cruise. I'm looking at some of the people, and they're all confused because our name is not on the cruise. So the person, the cruise director says, sorry, your name is not here, and we are a fully booked cruise. So, we will set you up, but it'll be in the crew area. And so we did. We weren't booked on the cruise, and then they relegated us to the crew quarters, where we had bunk beds. Now, I am of a certain age, and my wife is too. Bunk beds just don't cut it for us, I can tell you. So we had a contract, and we said, look, this is our contract, and bunk beds are not what we're planning. And they said, well, we don't even need you here. Anyway, so it all turned out, we said, look, they said, we'll have to leave the port and then we'll see what we can do. Well, it turned out that we got a doctor's cabin, which is an officer's cabin, and it, it was great. It had double bed and or a queen bed, and it had a window, and it was terrific. But we had some anxious moments because we had no home to go back to. Olympics were on, so the hotels were all booked. So it was going to it was a kind of a moment of anxiety, should I say? But it turned out well, and when I say it went straight downhill from there, because at that time, at that moment, we thought, oh my gosh, we're in trouble here. But cruise line, fortunately for us, came out straight ahead, and they were wonderful. They helped us, and we enjoyed the cruise. In fact, it was a back-to-back cruise, and so it says Murphy's Law says. Let me go back here. Murphy's Law says the bigger the ship, the more chances that things are going to foul up. So you have to be flexible. The do's aboard. Do promote your events shamelessly at every opportunity. Do act as an ambassador for the cruise line. Do accept thanks graciously. Do mingle with your audience. I always mingle with my audience before my talk. So I'm there 15 minutes before, people are coming in, I'm saying hi, where are you from? Thank you for coming to my lecture, and come back again. I'm here tomorrow again, and they do. Do attend other speakers' events because you'll learn from them, and not only that, you want to make sure that your information is not repeated, or the other speakers are not repeating what you're talking about. Sometimes things overlap, so you have to. I always want to make sure what other speakers are talking about, so you're not kind of repeating each other. And you offer to be as helpful as possible to the cruise director at all times. And be flexible. Remember, the bigger the ship, the more chances things will happen. And they will happen from time to time. The don'ts. Don't whine or complain to anyone about your situation, no matter what it is. Don't tell other passengers about your arrangement. We are very specific. Some people, you'll get other people on board, and they'll come to you and they'll say, oh, so you're the speaker, so tell me, do you get paid for this, or how do you become a cruise speaker? And I say, well, first, we can't talk about our arrangement, and we don't. You do not want to get in a conversation because this can get back to the cruise line. You don't spread gossip or speak negatively of anyone on board, ever. Whether it's another speaker, no matter what, you just smile and shake your head and move along. You never discuss politics or religion with anyone, particularly from the stage. You never get into political conversations because, this is a politically very combustible time in the world. You do not take up the cruise director's time for no reason. They're very busy. They're super busy. So you're there to serve. And if they come to you and say, we need another lecture from you, I have about 2 lectures in my back pocket all the time. Extra lectures. So and it's happened. They've come to me and said, can you do another lecture? And I say, absolutely. I'm here. And then don't get drunk and try to be the life of the party. That says it without even talking about it. Here is my lovely wife and I doing zip lining in Costa Rica. Had a great time. It was a wonderful adventure. Now, here's the Queen Mary. Now, the reason I put this together is simple. We take that information that you see on the screen right now, and this becomes part of another lecture on the story of the Queen Mary. Most people don't know what the story is. So, now when you're a cruise speaker, you're always looking out at ports of call. How can I get other information about this port? Because I could be coming back here again. We've been to Hawaii 4 or 5 times, and our lectures don't change all that much because they're, we've been there, done that. We've gotten information from Hawaii. And so that fits into about 2 or 3 different lectures, destination lectures. So this was a Queen Mary that's parked near San Diego. And we went on a tour, cost us $15-20, and fabulous. There I am in the wheelhouse of the original Queen Mary. Here's their exercise room, the gym. And you'll notice in the background, if you look through that window, you'll see the actual gym that's there today because the Queen Mary is now a hotel, transferred into a hotel from a ship. But you can walk through this great historical information, great stuff, and it's really fun. Now, here's the captain's quarters back in the 40s, 30s, 40s. Quite elegant, actually, quite well put together. And here is on the Royal Caribbean. This is for 12 people, and you get in there, and it takes you out over the sea about 150 meters on either side of the ship. So it's like your own built-in Ferris wheel, only it's vertical or horizontal, not vertical. And it's another one of the toys that's on board these, cruise ships. So, and Royal Caribbean have huge technology on board. I mean, they have all the bells and whistles and toys and whatever for a younger generation. I mean, it's enjoyable, but it is what it is. You see it there. So, I'm presenting the Speakers Cruise for Free workshop, Saturday, June 27th. There are 10 spaces. We only bring 10 people into the workshop. 3 have already signed up. There are 7 spaces left. Now, I want to share this with you, and I don't have this on the screen, but I'm going to share this with you before we talk about, your investment in this. A cruise to Hawaii, 2 people. There's one right now happening. We were on one in April from Vancouver, 5 of the Hawaiian Islands back to Vancouver. It was 16 days. That cruise would probably have set you back $2,500 per person if you were to engage in what the drinks in the evening and the whatever else is going on. Plus, you get the lap of luxury, which means you get first-class meals, you get top-line entertainment, you get all of the amenities possible. You have courses. I took a course on drumming at one point. I took one on Windows that I wanted to get some information on. They have multiple courses. My wife took a couple of cooking courses. This is a 5-star hotel on the water. So I just want to share that with you. So here's the event we're putting on. Here's some details. We help you reconstruct your bio, your resume for speaking, since you're now in the entertainment business. The protocols, and then we talk to you about the protocols of getting cruise speaker planners to pay attention and hire you. And then I present that 40-minute presentation of a typical cruise lecture and break it down to show you how it all works. Then we show you how to research and compile your presentations. We teach you how to wow your audience on your first cruise, how to endear your audiences to you, and to create onboard groupies. And yes, there are onboard groupies. And we will provide you with a name, phone number, and email of the speaker coordinator at Princess Royal Caribbean in Holland, America, and I will introduce you to these people via email and copy you on it so you can keep track of it. And because you have to keep in touch with them to find out details of what you want to do, et cetera, et cetera. Then we have, remember earlier I said you need a 3 to 5 minute video of you performing in front of an in-house audience for the cruise speaker coordinator. And, if you were dependent on doing this yourself, you would never do it, because you need an audience that's friendly, and you have to have a really good, shot of yourself. So what we do as part of that day is my videographer comes in, he sets up all his equipment in a stage format so that it looks like you're talking to an audience, and then you talk 3 to 5 minutes on any subject matter that might be of interest to you. It doesn't have to be anything around cruising. I had guys talk about, one person talked about Duke Ellington and jazz. Another person talked about traveling in Egypt. So you talk about something that you're passionate about for 3 to 5 minutes. And then we take a video of that, and then we determine whether the video is good enough. If not, you can come back and redo your video. This is worth, I put $775, that's $1,000 deal right there, where the videographer does that. Because here's the reason that I do this is, as a cruise speaker, that's one of the requirements, and chances of you ever getting that done in front of an in-house audience is virtually none. You probably would never do it. Another bonus is that then you have a 60-minute one-on-one coaching from me at your convenience when you want, and we set up a time to do this to kind of nudge you and take you in the right direction and force you to take action. That's $275, because that is my hourly fee, $275 in my business life. Your investment, Regular investments, $597 plus GST. Early bird investment until, I'm not sure of the date, but it's $497. Book today. Don't wait. This gives you the opportunity to travel the world in luxury, sophistication, have a great time for you and your partner. I cannot tell you enough about it. I have had friends of mine who are not speakers who are salivating at this opportunity. And in fact, just to give you kind of an idea, when Sarah said, you know, I'd love to speak, I said, go into Toastmasters and take Toastmasters on up to CTM level, and you'll be able to speak better than most. And believe me, I've seen some speakers on cruise ships that I wonder how they got there. So this is not a complicated thing to do. So that is your investment. And please note, there are 10 people, 7 spaces are left now. This is the last one I'm doing in Vancouver. Next one is Seattle in August and San Diego in August. So here's where you sign up. Speakers Cruise for free, June27.eventbrite.ca. Take the time to write this down or tweak it. Just go on Eventbrite and put down Speakers Cruise for free, and you'll find it very, very quickly. So if you have any questions, you can email me. I'm accessible. You can call me. I'm available. I'm happy to help out in any way I can. So here's I'm going to close with a couple of points, and here's one of my favorite people. She's God bless her, she's passed away. But I take this quote and I try to live it every day of my life. I've learned that people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And there I am. There's my phone number and my email and the actual Cruise for Free website. Don't wait around. This is an opportunity of a lifetime for you to participate and become a cruise speaker. And by the way, once you are a cruise speaker, you are there for life. So thank you for spending the time, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy lives just to listen to this presentation. Hopefully our paths will cross in the not too distant future. So all the best. And as my wife and I usually say, aloha.
Oh, that was fabulous, Roy. Thank you very, very much. I'm just going to reiterate that URL. Go to Speakers Cruise for free, June27.eventbrite.ca.
Oh, well, I'll go back there right now. There we go.
Hurry up, quick.
Okay.